yeah, I used to go get my hair done. So it's been a transition to figure out how to do my own hair.
Yeah.
And I'm not a do your hair every day type of girl. I'm not doing that. So I've, tried to get it to the place where I don't really have to manage it. But I've run out of the hair products that I usually use. So I usually use Donna's Recipe and
Oh, okay. So it's like sweet
I would
potatoes.
yeah, so I would order it through Amazon, but life and circumstance has not really allowed me to be able to get all the pieces of the system. So I'm experimenting with different products until I have the capacity to make my own, is what's going
Okay.
to wind up happening because um I'm not trying to do hair every day. That's not my ministry. I don't want
Yeah.
it to be my ministry either.
Yeah. I
So,
understand.
yeah.
Yeah, I've never had thick hair. I've always had fine hair. And when I would get relaxers, it would be one of the most pointless exercises because it would just frizz.
Mhm.
And I mean, if anyone knows me, I just stayed in braids, like different variations
Right.
of braids. But even in getting braids, synthetic hair is plastic. And
Mm-hmm.
someone who like legitimately cares about the environment and the waste of it, I just felt a lot of guilt every time
Mm-hmm.
I sit down for some knotless braids. Like it's gonna look
Mm.
good, but in 12 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever, I'm gonna take these out, and it's a big old ball of just trash. And at
Yeah, a
the end,
lot of it too.
yeah, it's a
A
lot.
whole bag full.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
multiple bags. If you have long ones, if you got multiple
Facts.
ones, and it's not like we reuse that hair, some people try, but so
Not the synthetic for sure.
no. And then even in the process of doing it, when you're burning the ends, that you're burning chemicals, and so you're the braid ladies inhaling that, you're inhaling that. Imagine what that's on like little kids when we braid their hair, like
Mm.
all of these things. And then I used to have like really irritated skin. Like my scalp would be like itchy, and then the hair would itch my skin. And I had just been belaboring the idea of getting locks because my hair isn't thick, and at the end of the day, that's what I would want. And
Mm-hmm.
I locked up January 8th. And it'll
Of
be
this
eight
year.
of this year. This is
Okay.
year. I had
So
some
on
rings.
your birthday, it'll be 8 months.
It'll be 8 months.
On 8/8. That is so dope.
Yep,
That on
eight,
purpose.
eight, eight. I didn't, but maybe I did. Maybe I did. Maybe I did.
Girl, you
The
an eight to the core, baby. We
eight
got to
to the
look up what
core.
eights mean.
Eight
Do
to
you
the
know what
core.
the number eight means?
Is it like it's not completion, is it? It's a new, because seven is completion and then eight is like starting all over again.
Eight is new beginnings, but I'm
Yeah.
curious about the rest of the spiritual significance. But go
Yeah.
ahead and keep talking. You were saying
No,
I'm looking
no,
that
but
up
yeah.
though.
So I got locks this year just to remove the guilt that I would feel every time I would get the flyest braids, the longest ones, the cornrows, the Fulani, whatever, all the different styles. I loved it. But what I also realized too, if I became patient with myself, it can grow to the length that I would get
Mm.
my braids in. So,
Hmm.
that's where I am, the patience with the process. Because yeah, I changed my hair every 2 months. And so it's been 8 months of just letting my hair find
Let
itself.
it be.
Yeah, yeah. But I don't have any irritation, and I don't have to worry about the waste in the product, and it's low maintenance. And yeah, so it's been an exercise.
This is so interesting, Kareen. And I honestly, when you were like, I love your hair, I didn't expect this. I didn't have any expectations for the question
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah,
for
yeah.
the comment, but I'm so intrigued at how it got to this place of like the environmental factors, because I
Yeah,
would not have really thought about that per se. Now, there were certain parts of what you said that I definitely was like, okay, yeah, I feel that, because like the irritation or like the amount of hair, the not using,
yeah,
reusing of the hair, like, yes, but I don't think I ever made the connection in my mind like that's plastic. And
it's
like,
plastic.
what's
It's
happening to this? And when you burn that, because interesting, I have like 17 different thoughts. I'm so sorry. My brain people are
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like, girl, what just happened? Because the other thing is the irritation. So remember, I just said I washed my hair twice this week. So what happened
Mhm.
was, um, I don't know to what end we're doing this, right? So I heard you say, that your natural hair can grow to the length that your braids will once be. I don't know
Eventually,
that I want that much hair. Right. So
yeah,
I'm over here like threatening myself to cut off my hair like
yeah.
every other day. So one of the things that I would do to not cut my hair is color my hair. So I used to use the semi-permanent color, and then I ran out of that. I also had my hair bleached at one point, so it was much easier to color. Well, now all of that has grown out and I'm cutting it whenever I feel like it. So now it's just like my virgin black hair, which is hard to color with semi
Mhm.
permanent. So I had some hair wax that my best friend had bought for me, and I used the hair wax. And it's almost like that same night, I started feeling weird in my body,
Mhm.
because the other thing is I've been going through like this detoxing. So, and not on intentionally per se, but I've been drinking tea and like I'm really in plant medicine and just thinking about what is actually going on my skin and in my body. So when I put the hair wax on, it's like I felt immediately like this is not this, I can't, I'm not.
Foreign.
Yes.
It's
So
foreign.
I washed it out and started over. And this is how Raina came out with those products. But it's also why I want to make my own products, because I
Yeah,
want to know what is in it. So, yeah.
yeah. No, I totally, it's, and I don't know if it's because I'm getting older, but everything feels to me like everything.
Yes.
Like when I drink, like if I've been drinking water and tea for a while and all of a sudden I drink some soda, my body immediately is like, what is that going inside of you? Like everything feels, even when I eat some, like if I eat, if I go eat fast food versus eating something cooked, it feels different. And so
Yeah.
I'm constantly, I think, and I don't know, maybe as younger people, we were ignoring that, or we thought that that feel was normal. And it's like, no, you
Is
shouldn't feel
that though? It's the
yeah,
feeling normal, because I
yeah.
didn't know how well I could feel until
Mm,
I got into a different environment. So I stopped drinking in 2022, and
hmm.
I stopped eating meat. I stopped drinking and eating meat at the same experience,
Yeah,
because I did not enjoy the process of it coming out, and I didn't
yeah.
enjoy how I felt the next day.
Mm,
So I just made a decision like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. But I had this parameter because when I first left the US, I was living in Playa del Carmen, and I did this raw vegan 21-day fast. And
wow.
during that time, I didn't necessarily like lose weight or anything like that. What I did notice is that my poop didn't stink, and that I had mental clarity like I had
Mm,
never felt before, right? So those were the things I took away. And then I went back to drinking and eat meat. It was just like, okay, where that was nice, cool, done with that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Until to a year and a half or so later, I was like, why am I making myself feel like this? Like,
Mm,
I'm not, my stomach is not supposed to hurt after I
yeah,
eat. I'm not
yeah.
supposed to be cramped up, because I've experienced what it's like to have food that doesn't make me feel that way.
Mm.
So it's like I had a moment, and then it was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
You're doing. I go back and forth, and what I've noticed recently is like when I do eat, I get so tired, like I'm exhausted, like
Mm.
I fall asleep, and I won't even necessarily eat a lot. But what it is, it might be meat, it might be, something processed or whatever, and I go, I'm tired. But if I eat even if I have dairy, when I have dairy, that puts me to sleep too. So let me just stop being lactose intolerant, like pay attention to those
Mm-hmm.
things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I eat like salads and eat things that are more whole and closer to whatever that actual ingredient is, I don't. So you're making some, you're touching me, you're triggering me. I need to, it's true. It's like our body is literally is like, hey, this works. No, this doesn't, so that's real.
Yeah, so this is a great time to pause because we kind of just jumped into this. And I love how this happened because it was so incredibly organic. I do want to pause here and say, hey, y'all, what's up? Welcome to Gathered Conversations for the Collective. This is a sacred space where we reclaim our stories, remember who we really are, and return to the truth of our being. I'm your host, Kimberland. I am a dream awakener, a heart revealer, and a curator of calm. This is not just a podcast. This is a place of restoration, of truth telling, of remembering what the world tried to make us forget. So every episode, I'm sitting down with soul-led folks who are in the process of unbecoming everything that they were never meant to carry. We're talking about identity, divinity, healing, rest, purpose, grief, joy, hair, and the sacred work of coming home to ourselves. So I invite you to settle in, light some incense, get you some tea, take a deep breath. You have entered a space where your full self is welcome. So let's get gathered. Today, we are talking about environmentalism and what that means, how that, what it means to honor our own ecosystem, and how we treat our body as our first planet. So you all have already been introduced to Kerene and some of the things that she thinks, and I have so much more that I want to get into. But I also think that it's really important to understand people's credentials and where people come from and understanding their book knowledge, if you will, as well as their life knowledge. So I'm going to read the bio, okay? And then I want you to tell me, Kerene, how it lands on you for you to hear me reading this about you. Okay?
Okay,
You got that? Okay.
sure.
So, Kerene Tayloe, Esquire, is a nationally recognized leader in environmental and energy justice with over 14 years of advocacy and policy experience. She most recently served as senior advisor to the U.S. Department of Energy's Office of Community Engagement and as a management and program analyst in the Office of Energy, Justice, and Equity. A 2020 recipient of the Rachel's Network Catalyst Award, Kerene is celebrated for her work advancing justice and building a more sustainable and equitable world. She shared her voice on stages like Afropunk, Broccoli City Fest, the Clean Energy Leadership Institute, and the Congressional Black Caucus Annual Legislative Conference. Her insights have been featured in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and beyond. Kerene is also the founder of Gingersome, a sorrel-based beverage company inspired by the flavors and resilience of the African diaspora. So I'm curious, how does it feel to hear me say that about you?
It feels great because it's all true. And there's probably way more that I could have included. Yeah, I'm really proud of myself. Like Kareen, I would be her friend. I would want to work with her. I would want to have her a part of my team. Like I'm really happy with who I am. So thank you. Thank you
I
for
love that. I
yep.
love that so much. Sometimes it's difficult for us to hear about ourselves, or sometimes it lands
Yeah,
really interestingly. So I love that you're like, because I'm that girl.
yeah,
Okay.
I did all those things. Yeah, I think maybe there was a point where I was humble, but and I'm not like boastful, but I'm my proof is my work product. The proof is the things that I've been able to accomplish, the people that I've been able to help, and the relationships that I've built in a really intentional and a holistic way. So yeah, that's who I am. Yeah, I'm really happy about that.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it so much. Okay, so I have like 17 billion questions, and I don't know how many we're gonna get to. Okay, but The first question I wanted to ask you is how did you become this person? Because you mentioned in the pre-show before before the intro that you found yourself like when you were getting braids and things like struggling with that, and you kind of always had difficulty with that. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering what your process was to get to be this person who cares about the environment. And I'm gonna tell you where it started for me. It started
Yeah.
for me with Captain Planet.
Hey, that's real. That's a good
That's
place to. That show made a Captain Planet. He's our hero, Kimberland.
oh my God, he's gonna take pollution down
Down to
to
zero.
zero.
Like, what better way to educate us? Yeah, no, Captain Planet. Um, yeah, definitely Captain Planet. I had the privilege of actually meeting Jane Fonda, and I told her, like, Captain Planet was that TBS and all, like that whole studio.
So
And
was she a executive producer or something with it?
well, I believe she was married to the gentleman who owned TBS at the time, and all of that kind of came through TBS broadcasting. I believe that I think that's I think that's how it's all connected to that. But yeah, no, for me, like how I came to be an environmentalist is really because I just love and care about Black people. And like, so I've always been an advocate in some degree, whether it's like, you know, people picking on people at school and elementary school and standing up for folks or learning about history. And I say this very fondly. My elementary school was like ran by a Black woman. My junior high was ran by that same Black woman's husband, who was a Black man. And they really entrenched us in culture and history.
Mm.
And ironically, like our school mascot was not a Black Panther, but it was a silver cougar, like real strong, real strong imagery of like Black history. Like we all learned Lift Every Voice and Sing in
Wow.
elementary school. And this is like a multicultural school in Evanston, Illinois. I went to Oakton, and then I went to Chute, and then I went to ETHS there in Evanston. I grew up there. Very diverse community. And like, just being in Chicago area, the Chicago area. Let me be clear, not Chicago. I did not grow up in Chicago. I grew up outside, but in that Chicago land area, the Cook County area, it's a predominantly diverse. It's a diverse community, and so we just grew up with a lot of I guess liberal or progressive ideas. And then going on to Fisk, where I met you, like, we got entrenched in civil rights and, Diane Nash, John Lewis, all those folks who gave their lives for the civil rights movement. So we kind of just were always sprinkled in our history that way. And um, even when I would work, I worked in campaigns, and I just found myself more enthused and excited about candidates who looked like me, who cared about my issues. And so it just became this like this whisper, like I care about Black people. How do we uplift ourselves economically? And then how do we have better communities? Like that was just always something I cared about. And when I was in law school, I went to FAMU College of Law, and I went to a like a panel about the farm workers
Mm.
in the Florida area, like Apopka in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the farm workers, the women were women. They were, of course, low income, and they were all women of color. They were, either Black or Latino, from that area. But all the men, all the people that were representing them were white men. And so I was like, where are the
Mm.
Black environmental lawyers? And so I somehow mentioned that to my civil procedure professor, Robert Abrams. He is a known water law like expert, and he helped me get an internship at the US EPA here in Washington, D.C. And that gave me access to a lot of people who were doing environmental justice advocacy and law at the EPA. And I got to like really see that a lot of these people or HBCU alums or adjacent, or people of color, women, people who cared about the issue. And that just opened up a whole career path for me that I've been on since 2009. And I've worked at the EPA. I then got a policy position, at an organization called We Act for Environmental Justice, and We Act is one of the oldest established environmental justice organizations in the country. And they're based in New York and Harlem, but they're the first environmental justice organization to have a permanent office in Washington D.C. And that's critical because it allowed them to advocate not only for their constituents and people based in Harlem, but then nationally for environmental justice across the board. And typically, like when you think about environmentalists, you might think about like someone might say, I'm a tree hugger, or,
Mm-hmm.
you might think of Sierra Club, some of these traditional larger groups. But like the movement has so many people of color in them, and these are just families, these are people's moms, these are, everyone's someone's parent, but a lot of them were just concerned citizens in their neighborhood who saw a local issue that really propelled them to figure out how to advocate, learning the system, whether it's through their local politics, their city or state politics, and then of course all of it is connected to federal policies and laws and agencies and things like that. And so with my time at We Act, I got to meet, the mothers, the founders, whatever the title is, but the people who were integral in creating this thing that we know to be environmental justice. Peggy Shepard, who's the founder of We Act, Bernice Miller Travis, as well as the founder. Just so many people I got to and still are in contact with that I can call friend, mentor for advice, guidance, that kind of thing. And so I started in the DC office, and I really just, got to hear and see what agencies do and what
Mm-hmm.
agencies don't do and what agencies can and can't do. But at the end of the day, you're correct. Like if we want to walk outside of our doors and inhale clean air and drink clean water, we should be environmentalists. We
Yeah.
are by nature of that, environmentalist. I think we just don't understand it, and we just assume that an environmentalist is someone who wants to, backpack through the Shenandoah or go out west and do things, or someone who's swimming, in the ocean and saving the coral reefs. But no, if you want to protect your people, you want healthy babies, you want just to be a healthy individual, you belong and you have the right to be in that space as much as anybody else. And I think what makes environmental justice complicated for people is the fact that you cannot separate that experience and that policy perspective without acknowledging race. And
And
yeah,
it's
we're
so interesting because that's like when I asked you how you became this person, you started off with I love Black people,
Mhm.
and I love, I'm committed to the Black movement. And it was
Yeah.
taking my brain a while to some of the questions I was asking myself was like, okay, so then what is environmentalism and what is environmental justice? Because I love Black people too, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, so if that's the entry point, then can you kind of paint the picture for maybe how broad environmentalism and environmental justice reaches? Because I've heard you say, backpacking through the mountains, saving the coral
Yeah.
reef, but also, do I want clean water? We had this conversation about food. We were talking about hair and getting our hair
Mhm.
braided. So,
All
what
of it.
exactly is environmentalism and what exactly is environmental justice? What does that encompass?
Well, yeah, environmentalism broadly is, protecting our natural resources, advocating for green spaces, and in especially in this hyper politicized place where we are, that has become, for whatever reason, seen as a left
Right.
thing. Really should be an us thing. But the reason why I think we're there is because if you do want to advocate to protect lands or water, you're going to immediately come against corporate interests who
Mm.
want access to those lands for, to build something or to take those trees down to create biofuels, or if they're doing something, they might be polluting in that water. Or even every single time we get a water bottle, where does that plastic end up? Does plastic really even get recycled? Like, and that speaks to corporate processes and procedures around manufacturing. And well, okay, we know that, and to be clear, most things that are plastic are not recycled. And because plastic is not intended to be reused, it's supposed to last forever. And by and large, when we are drinking those water bottles, it doesn't go anywhere. Like, and so people like, oh, I can just recycle this. Most things aren't. Like, plastic is not recyclable. So then that's back to a corporate interest. All of these um, pop manufacturers, water bottle companies, why do they keep using plastic? Because it's cheap and it's
Mm-hmm.
easy, but it's not the best option. But if they were to then institute the best option, they would then be, required to pay more and to do more. Yeah. So, like, corporate interests don't, they have not historically prioritized the environment. That's why, we have where you grew up in Louisiana, a whole area called Cancer Alley. These are
Mm-hmm.
petrochemical, which
Mm-hmm.
they make plastics and a whole bunch of things, these factories. And factories typically, when they're built, are going to be adjacent or close to a body of water. They're emitting whatever into the air. Like, as a capitalist society, our goal is to make as many things and have people
Right.
consume and buy as many things. But in addition to creating products, we're creating pollution. These things go hand in hand. They're not good outcomes, and the result of that is typically, there's more air pollution in those areas. The air quality is bad. The water in those areas are bad. And when we think about things from a historical perspective, companies, when they build their factories, are going to look for land that's cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And they also are going to look for land located in areas where there won't be much opposition to their projects. And so then they're going to look for people and communities that lack political power and
Right.
don't have, the ability to push against them and to cause issues. And historically, that means communities of color will be the
Right.
placement of those most harmful projects, those most harmful facilities. And so then the direct impact of that is, if the community lives there, their property value goes down, and then their quality of life goes down because they're going to be inhaling more air that's polluted by those facilities. They're going to be, drinking that water, and because all of that pollution is happening, there's going to be an increase of health risks, asthma, respiratory problems, cancer. So taking that view of, if you're only looking at being an environmentalist in the traditional way of, I'm going outside to camp, I'm going outside to, save these birds, all of those things are important and they're really great indicators of health and quality. But the direct impact of capitalism and where the most harmful facilities are, it's going to be where Black people are,
Right.
like, hands down. And so in the 70s, the EPA was founded. EPA, Department of Energy, a lot of those federal agencies were founded under the Nixon administration around that time, like early 70s. And there were a number of environmental issues. Love Canal in New York, where there was these toxic dumping at school sites, and then people
Mm.
started seeing how children were impacted by that. And that's another thing too. A lot of land where schools are might have been reclaimed land that at one point a facility was there, and you think you've treated the land enough and that there won't be any issues, but children can be impacted by that still.
Mm.
Or their schools might be next to a facility and they're
Mm-hmm.
directly impacted by that. But back to the uncomfortable part about race, in the there's a report that came out, I believe in 1987, Toxic Waste and Race,
Okay.
and by the United Church of Christ, and it just looked clearly that there was a clear correlation between where the most harmful facilities were and there are people of color in those places. And as much as we try to say that it's not race, it's a class thing. Nope. There are even instances where Black middle class communities
Mm.
are still more likely to be closer to
Mm-hmm.
the most harmful facilities. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's Black people, Latino people, low income people, Asian people. All of these communities are environmental justice communities. But race is the biggest indicator of where the most harmful things are, like
Hands
hands
down.
down, hands down.
Yeah.
And the challenge is from the federal government, the moment they make race the main indicator, they'll get more challenges to it. And so they look for other ways to say, other ways to prove it. So they'll look at asthma rates, they'll look at the number of like renters versus homeowners, lack of green space. Like there's like in some of the ways that we've done things or we did things federally, it could be like up to 36 indicators
Mm.
when race would like solve it all. If we just like, where are these people? And race would be the best indicator, but the federal government avoided that one. And so environmental justice acknowledges that history and that harm, and it looks to rectify that harm. It looks to empower those communities to be a part of solutions, and then
Mm.
in the ideal case to be able to say no. It should these kinds of projects should not be in our community.
Right.
And the challenge with that is to the status quo. You're changing how we've always done things. We've always done put things here, or if we want to mitigate to reduce the harm, that's going to be more expensive to these
Mm-hmm.
corporations in terms of
Mm-hmm.
putting in, the technical requirements to reduce or to clean and filter things before they, go through a smokestack, or purify and reduce something before it gets into a body of water. So yeah, like it being an environmentalist specifically focused on environmental justice is directly linked to economic impacts in
Right.
of our communities. So it like I just wish more of us saw it that way. But we're all impacted, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for outlining that, broadening that, and also breaking that down.
Okay.
Because there were so many things in what you said that I realized drove me to be here in Medellin. Because one of the first things that I noticed when I visited Medellin is how green it was. So, for context, I live in Medellin, Colombia, in South America, and Medellin is the city of eternal spring. So it's always springtime. Everything is green. Everything's growing. It's just a really lush, lush place. And it was one of the things that brought my soul comfort when I left the US and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do after everything I experienced in educational advocacy and activism. And I remember there's this mall here. It's called Tesoro. And there is a brook that runs through the mall.
Oh, wow.
And I thought that that was so impressive because I said to myself, the US would have filled that in a hot second. Wouldn't have been like at all. Park and lot it. Get it
Yeah.
out of here. So I saw that. And then there's a community here called Comuna 13, where they've rehabilitated this community. It was one of the communities that Pablo Escobar had a lot of activities in back in the day. So they've spent a lot of time in rehabilitating this community and divorcing themselves from that image. So it's
Mm,
now like a really artsy, like colorful place. There's just always so much interesting stuff that's happening there. But one of the biggest parts about it is they had this escalator project. So Medellin is in the mountains. And they had this escalator project to help people get back up into the mountains. Because what used to happen before that is that there were stairs and people would have to walk
wow.
up and down the stairs in order to get up and down the mountain. The city is in the valley. So people that have privilege and access live in the valley. They don't have to go up and down the mountain. So those who are not as privileged are living in the mountain. So they also created this cable car system for transportation so that people can get home and to work out of the mountain, right? So as they were talking about the escalator project, there were homes that were there. So they were like, y'all are probably wondering like what happened to the homes. Well, what they did is they built a building to put the people in and relocated them into a better situation than they
Mm,
were in of now having access to things that they didn't have access to before. So that was kind of like the trade off. But it was very interesting to me because the whole time I was saying to myself, they would never do this in the US. Like
mm,
there are fruit trees here. Like I'm walking down the street and somebody has a bag and they're getting limes out of the tree and going on about their day because fruit trees are allowed to be around to feed people because it's free food. So it's
mm,
stuff like that that started to allow me to make the contrast between how the environment and how people are treated and access to certain things in the US versus what it looks like here. And
mm.
had I not left the US and come to this place, I would have never known. It would have just
Yeah.
been normal, right? And so I really appreciate you contextualizing that because to your point of wishing that more people were aware, people don't know. And
Mhm,
people don't know because they're living in survival mode because of all
mhm.
the things that you've mentioned. And one of the things we talk about on the Frolicking Truth all the time is brain research. And when you're in survival mode and you're in this mode of just trying to make it from day to day, you feed that
Yeah.
system
Yep.
that you're talking about. So then you don't have the wherewithal to get up and go learn about something new or to go advocate or whatever. You just kind of fight, flight, freeze, fawn response,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So I'm just drawing so many connections with the things that we've talked about. And I've just never thought about environmentalism or environmental justice as something I was already doing. Like I'm
Mhm.
like, this is what's happening because I care about Black people.
Yeah. And you mentioned being able to like go outside and just pick a tree. We can't
Mm-hmm.
do that in the United States. And I don't know if you come back when you've been here, like always like having allergies, and people complaining about pollen and oh, it's that time of the year. That was that's not natural. The reason why a lot of people experience allergies to the degree they do in the United States is because there is an imbalance between male and female trees. There's some trees that are supposed to bear fruit, there's some trees that are not. And the female, of course, bears, but they've intentionally have planted more male trees to prevent those trees from bearing fruit, and then to prevent the very thing you just said, to allow someone just to go up and pick an apple, to allow someone to do whatever. And that's a form of capitalism, and thinking that because you don't deserve food unless you pay for it, you have to go to the store, you have to go, and then these farmers create it, and then you have to buy it. That kind of that mentality. Now the byproduct of that is we have killer allergies and high pollen counts. And then what does that lead us to then have to do? Go to the pharmacy to then get, a prescription or an over-the-counter, Benadryl or whatever it is, antihistamine to address the fact that you now have an allergy that you really shouldn't have, but for the fact we don't have enough female trees to counter the creation of all of this pollen. And that's an environmental issue.
Yeah.
These are different ways our environment it's being manipulated for and taking it away from how it probably was 30 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, for the goal and intention of capitalism and making money and creating systems that then take us away from the land to be dependent on stores and the bigger system of buying and consumerism. So like all of that is connected, and you're so right that it's not until we leave our homes, whether that's leaving, New Orleans, leaving Evanston, moving to Nashville and seeing something
Mm-hmm.
different there,
Mm-hmm.
or moving from Nashville to Florida. Like we've lived in some of the same places and not at the
Mm-hmm.
same time. I don't know if you
I
noticed
know.
that. Living in Tampa and then, moving there and then going overseas and then seeing that
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole different way to live. And
Yeah.
like there are people from abroad who never have allergies because they don't have that in place. But in America, we do. And all of that, these are intentional choices, and most people are harmed and they just don't realize it because they don't know that there's another way to live.
Yeah. And the impacts also are not necessarily immediate. And if everybody around you has allergies, then you just think, oh, that's
Yeah.
normal. We get allergies around this time of year because we don't know to go and ask the questions about the things to understand what's really happening behind the scenes.
We
I've
don't
been
even know that.
talking,
We don't even know that
I,
we can act.
we don't even know that we can ask questions because we were trained not to ask questions.
And when I say that, it reminds me of a time in high school. And like my junior year, I was in all of these like honors classes, and I kept looking around like, where are the Black kids? Why am I the only one? Why are there only a couple of us? And I'm I'm a curious person, and I started to ask. And then you learn about this whole system that is operating in its own way,
Yes.
that separates our children, that labels certain kids as having
Yes.
issues with learning. And I always like tell the story. There was this, I forgot it, I think it was Chris Kelly. It's one of the boys in my first grade class. He taught me the difference, Black boy. He taught me the difference between like here, like you're here and you can hear. And he was like, well, because when you hear with your ear, the word ear is in it. ear, like you hear. And I was blown away. Like, how brilliant for a first grader to, like, oh my God. Come, like, by the time I got to high school, I don't know where he was, but I know he was getting in trouble. He was in the system. He wasn't in any of my classes. And so I
Mm.
started to ask, like, what's that about? You know, and we aren't encouraged to ask questions. And the reality is, for every question, it is a long explanation and a lot of injustice. A
Right.
lot of injustice.
Right. Yes.
Intentional, intentional,
Intentional.
intentional.
Yes.
And maybe for a lot of us in survivor mode, asking the question is exhausting, or we can't afford to ask, or if we ask, we'll find a lot of harm and shame, or we might lose our jobs. It might put us in a predicament where we can't be who we are.
Yeah.
We can't sustain our families. And so it's like, well, let me just do what I do. Not
Yeah.
that we don't care, but once you kind of peel that onion, it could
It's a lot.
change.
It's a
It
lot. And it
could change.
goes deep. And
Yeah.
so that's what I wanted to ask you because kind of bypassed over, yeah, when I left the US, and like all the things I
Mhm.
saw in education. But I know that you've also had your own journey of seeing and asking, because it is the asking questions that get us in trouble. And I know that trouble. I know good trouble, as John Lewis, right, would
And we
say.
were taught, right?
Right. So when we're asking these questions, we're uncovering things and we're going down the rabbit holes and understanding how intentional that this damage has been and how we as a people have been targeted. And for me, it's caused a break. I
Mhm.
could not rectify that. It took a while for me to really process how deeply it goes, right? So you were talking about children working in education, child, the things I have seen, the
I know.
conversations I've heard, right? So it broke my spirit, it broke my brain. Like I really had to leave so that I could heal and try to figure out what advocacy looks like for me in this phase of life. I'm curious about how you have processed the things that you have learned and how that has impacted how you are showing up in the way that you're choosing to remain involved in this work, because I know that you had taken some time away. So like how are you processing all of this?
Um, I've only worked in the federal government now for 3 years, so it hasn't been the majority of my career. And at the time, I was able to, within you know some some real limitations. I could still advocate. I could still focus on helping businesses of color and women-owned businesses, HBCUs, other minority-serving institutions. I could still advocate, but that's no longer a priority. And I'm honestly on admin leave, and I've really used this time to like be curious in a different way by exploring and traveling. I've talked about this quite a bit. Similar to you, just really getting joy about being somewhere else and seeing something else, and then even thinking, how do I become more of a global citizen?
Mm,
What would my life look like if I didn't necessarily have to live in America? And that I think is where I am. And if it's not me moving just yet, how do I maximize my free time
mhm,
to see and be and experience Kerene in another country, in another place? So like I went to Africa for the first time in April. I went to Canada. I was born in Canada, and I hadn't been there in a very long time, and I got to just explore and walk the streets of Montreal and Toronto, and even I'm taking a group with me, a group of fiscal alums to Paris, and also when we were there supporting Black businesses while we're there.
mhm,
So I really enjoy traveling. I really do. I really appreciate seeing how other people live, and then like, oh, I could do that. Or
mm,
I could take this train. What? You got trains? Japan? These bullet trains are fast. Like, and then, but in the experiencing it, then I come back and I'm like, well, why don't we have this here? Why can't we have this here? And then when you pull that onion back, you learn that there's a whole history of decisions that took us away. Because I love trains. We used to have the most trains, I think, at one point definitely in the West, like
mhm,
from the East Coast across, like they pulled up train tracks to
mm,
make roads for cars. And I live in the DMV area, and I take the Amtrak up to New York all the time, and that's the best it's going to be, or the best that it is right now. And in comparison to what it is in the rest of the world, it's slow.
mm,
And and but those kinds of things were decisions too, to keep us on addicted to cars, to keep us
right.
using gas. um, and to also keep poor people stuck. Because if you have trains and you can get a moderately
You can
priced
be
ticket, more
mobile.
people can be mobile.
Yep.
And these were, again, intentional decisions that have an environmental impact and they have a health impact. You know, with more cars on the road, that's more um, asthma and all those kinds of things that come up because there's more dust in the air. They call it particulate matter, PM
Hmm.
2.5. Like there's just more dust, and then you breathe in that dust, and then those little dust particles start to impact your esophagus and your lungs and all of your internal organs, and then you have respiratory problems, and that is more likely to happen where in communities of color. Oh my gosh, all of these things. So again, all of these things about how we live, where we live, why we can't live over there, why we can't go over there, why the only ways we can go there is by car, by plane, and we can't take a bus, we can't take a train. Like all of those things are like race based.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So getting away from that and traveling and experiencing other people's things has been my thing. So I'm in Canada, like, oh, I took the train from Toronto to Montreal. And I was like, oh,
Hmm.
this is you know, and taking the train in Montreal, taking the train in Toronto, and when I'm in Europe, taking it there, and then even going to Africa and be like, whoa, almost this. There's so much great opportunity to build and to create the world that we deserve in Africa.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like those are all the things that I think about when I get to travel.
Yeah, I love that so much. Just broadening your horizons. And what I will say, if you're someone who has the desire to travel, but maybe don't necessarily have the resources, one of the things I appreciate about content creation and content creators is they have given people an opportunity to actually see what's happening in those spaces. Get on YouTube, look at what people are seeing as they're walking around and what life looks like in other places because I compare the US to WandaVision a lot. I don't know if you're familiar
That's
with.
a good analogy. Okay, I thought I've seen WandaVision.
Yeah, but the projection of something on the outside and something completely different is happening on the inside. It's really, really interesting. So, give yourself different ways to take field trips that may not necessarily be reliant on money. We can take a virtual field trip and go see something through somebody else's eyes and follow creators that are in those spaces and being advocates for those places to show a different way. You mentioned that you are on administrative leave, which is giving you the opportunity to be able to travel. I'm
Mhm.
curious about what you have learned about yourself during this time.
I'm still a morning person, even if I don't have to log in. I'm
Okay.
still
What's
up at
morning for you?
6 a.m., 7,
Ooh,
no alarm clock.
Jesus.
No alarm clock. Yeah. I'm still a morning person. Um, I still need to go outside and get sunlight and it even and I need movement like that. Those things still matter. But what I am learning more and more is I'm the things that I'm most excited about, I don't get paid for it. And now that I've had the free time to focus on those things in like a hyper focused way, I don't want to go back to not paying, not giving those things that amount of time. So I need to really I have 2 months left. I need to really focus on how to live some of the things that I've been able to do and the causes that I've been able to really focus on in a more full time basis. And I don't like 9 to 5s.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I don't like 9 to 5s.
And
That's
then
what I've
that's
learned.
all right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
all right. Because they're not safe places for us most times anyway.
Mm,
So that's all right.
yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah, I think I want to, I need to sit down and just figure out what next looks like for me
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
give myself the space to not feel like I need to be what I used to be. Like, how do I
Hmm.
be a version of myself, you
Hmm.
know, not only, my birthday is in a couple weeks, and so you're always like, oh my God, it's my birthday. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna focus, all of that. But like even like the timing of everything is still, it's real, it's synced very well. Like what does the remainder of 2024 look like, 2025, and the rest of my life? Like how do I live? How do I be this world citizen in a different way is what I'm thinking
Yeah.
about.
Have you, and I'm sure that you have, so let me rephrase. What intentional decisions are you making in your own life to get closer to that? Like to get closer to the person that you want to be out here in this world?
You had mentioned in my bio that I'm also the founder of Gingersome. So I'm a product of Jamaica. Both my parents are born in Jamaica. They are Jamaican people. I was not born in Jamaica. I was born in Canada, which is a lot of Jamaican people there too. And I one thing we always had as like a part of our parties, part of the holidays, was drinking a hibiscus drink called sorrel, and I just love it. And I learned to make it as an adult, and I love to share it. And I haven't like as I think about being more entrepreneurial, bringing that product. And selling it and packaging it in a way I think that elevates it is something that I really want to focus on and that I have been focusing on. And then on the travel side, um, being, the type A Black woman that a lot of us are, we like structure and order, and we want really quality experiences. And in planning even this trip for the Fisk chapter here, the alumni chapter, I really have a knack for like one, bringing people together, and then also allowing people to experience new things and in a safe and structured way, like trip itineraries. Like that's what it's giving people structure to experience new things. And as like we had a check-in call just last night with a lot of the group, and some of these people have never traveled to Europe before. And these are like well-read teachers, professionals, and they might have been afraid to go by themselves, or they didn't know where to go, and or they may not even wanted to try. And allowing people to, providing these opportunities to others to explore can like be life changing. I brought my mom to Paris last year for her birthday, and she was like, you know, like a kid,
Mm.
like curious and asking questions. And oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Oh
Yeah.
wow, where are we? Just like this, I had never seen her be that pure and that
Yeah.
innocent and wide-eyed. And like, because if we only stay where we are and where we are accustomed to, we don't, our mind, I don't know that our mind is allowed to like the synapses aren't allowed to do anything new. Like it's
Mm-mm.
the same every single day. And I think we need to venture, even if you live in Nashville and you decide you want to go to Montana. My goodness, it'll change your perspective. And then imagine what it's like to then say, you know what? From Nashville, from Tampa, from New Orleans, from Evanston, I'm going to go live in Costa Rica. I'm going to go live in, West Africa, or I'm going to spend a week in Paris. You'll come back different. You can't
Yeah.
possibly come back the same. There's
Yeah.
no way that
Yeah.
you allow yourself to see people differently, to taste differently, to drink water differently, and say I'm going to come back and then just be the same exact person. There's no way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just see travel and helping people travel a way to broaden their perspective and give them a new version of themselves.
Yeah, I so appreciate that. While you were talking, I was thinking about I met this professor. I don't know if he's still there at Morgan State. Isn't that where you're? Let me not be telling
My brother
business.
went there, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm like, I'm just telling all of it. But he is a, I want to say did he tell me geography? maybe it
Oh,
was geography. Okay. And
okay.
I was like, ugh, take me out because social studies was not my jam. Like, I'm very much math and science type of girly. I hated social
Yeah,
studies with a
yeah.
passion until recently when I started making all these connections. He was integral in this. So he was telling me, I said, I hate geography. And he was like, I get that so often. He said, but every year, what I do is I take all of the professors on a walk around the neighborhood. And each
Oh,
of them have a lens that they need to use as they're walking around the neighborhood. So
mm,
someone might be a parent, someone might be a tourist, someone might have mobility issues, someone might have blindness, someone might have like these different roles that they take on, and they walk through the neighborhood looking at things through that lens,
mhm,
which is different than the lens that they might usually use. And what
mhm,
happened after having that conversation with him, I went back to Mexico City and I started looking at things through the lens of ability and people who might have mobility issues. And I was
mhm,
like, I don't know how they're supposed to get around because the
mhm,
ramps, there weren't really ramps. The sidewalk is really, really high. Like it was just not a smooth path. So that's a lens that I started using to look at the places that I was at differently so that I
mhm.
don't get so used to seeing the same thing every day that I just divorce myself from it and I just, it's whatever. So that's something else that people can do is put on a different hat. Like if you're not a parent, walk around your neighborhood as a parent and see where are the playgrounds, where are the schools, what are the things that are next to the schools, where are the crosswalks, like how are kids going to be safe. So just putting on a different hat might also help us to not be the same and to really
Mhm.
kind of push ourselves to see things from a different point of view and a different perspective.
Yeah. And you're right about YouTube videos. You can look up any and everything and learn so much. So in addition to it gives you access to other people's experience so that you kind of grows your heart empathy. And of course reading. Who does that? Yeah, like read a book. But I think the ability to see yourself in others, the ability to see others
Mm,
is critical.
yes.
And yeah, we're at a time where that's not a priority. And that's
Yeah,
also it's almost becoming like a faux pas to care. Yeah.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. And for those of us who feel, it's like this consistent cognitive dissonance every single day. Like I don't, so we not caring about people. Like people are disposable. Like we've been talking about this on the Frolicking Truth, and I've kind of been like, gently urging us to connect back to ourselves and connect back to our bodies because again a product of capitalism and consumerism is that we just become products and so we
Mm,
lose our own humanity and we lose our own connection with ourselves. So if I can't connect with myself, how can I care about somebody else? These are things that live in a different portion of my brain, right? So okay, so I have to have you back because like this conversation is just it's so much. There's so many places that we can go. But before we go, I want to do a rapid fire round with you. So it's called Rooted and Real. Okay.
mm,
So
yeah.
I have some questions that I'm going to ask you, and I want you to just share what
Okay.
bubbles up in your heart. Okay. All right. So the first one is, who is a Black woman that inspires your work?
Oh, I immediately thought Michelle Obama, but I don't know if she inspires my work. My first boss, Andrea Stewart Cousins, she inspires my work. She ran for office in Westchester County, New York, and she lost by like 20 votes, something ridiculous.
Mm,
And she ran again and she's won and she's now the highest ranking woman and black woman outside of the governor in New York State legislative history. She inspires my work. I aspire to be like her. She also started her career a little later in life, so for all of us who
mm,
thinking that it's too late,
mm-hmm.
that like her life story, it inspired me quite a bit. Yeah.
I love that.
Hurry up,
Okay.
students. Yep.
Very nice. All right. So, in the spirit of Captain Planet, we talked about earlier, what is your favorite element? Earth, fire, wind, water, or
Water,
heart?
water,
Water.
water.
You said
It's
that quickly.
powerful. It's calming. I've been taking swimming lessons and I'm pretty
Mm.
good. I can float. I can float.
Okay.
But it just feels really good. And we need it. We need it. We got to drink it. We use it to cook. Um, yeah, water's pretty cool.
All right. Okay. What is a ritual that grounds you?
Um, my yoga practice really helps. Not only is it like mental and it's good for breathing, but like moving your body in a way that gets all the creaks out of your bones and stuff like that. Yeah, my yoga practice is pretty critical.
I
Mhm.
love this. Do you have a side note? This is not a part of the this is not a part of the rapid fire, but do you have a particular creator that you follow, or like what when you do your yoga practice, is it self-led, or how do you know what to do?
Um, I I really like Chelsea Jackson Roberts on the is that her last name? Chelsea Jackson. I think that's her last name. She's the main black yoga uh, person on Peloton. So like
Oh,
I don't ever like so she, for people who like the bikes,
uh-huh.
Peloton has a lot of other content that is just for like weightlifting or whatever. I hate the bike. It hurts my butt, but that yoga class she gives is excellent.
It
Yep,
hits.
Chelsea Jackson Roberts. Yep.
Okay, all right, y'all got that? Okay, what is one thing that you are unlearning?
I don't have to do everything.
Mm,
I don't have to do everything. I can't. I
mm,
can't. Yeah.
mm. Wow.
And in doing everything, you're gonna have to if you gotta delegate, like when you delegate to people, you have to know the difference between like a style decision versus like a process and a structure. Because if someone really likes, 3 shades lighter than you of green, but you really prefer, that teal or whatever, you got to let that go. Like their style decision, if the thing can still be accomplished, but it looks a little different, you got to let that go. You got to let
Mm,
that go.
mm,
You got to let that go.
mm-hmm. Okay. What does freedom feel like in your body?
Water, water. Like when you drink a really nice glass of water and you just feel it going all the places and you feel you don't feel ashy on the inside. That's like I think that's what freedom is. You don't feel is freedom is freedom from ash. Ash in
Yes.
your skin, ash on your body, ash on your skin, ash in your life. That's
Come
water.
on.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. I love that so much.
You ever wake up and like your eyes are tight and your head hurts, like, and then you drink water and it just goes away. Like I think that's what freedom is. Like, it's the solution driven thing and it's a movement
Mm.
driven thing, and I think water does that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, this is our final question. And this is not necessarily rapid fire. But if your story and your life experiences could shift the way that someone else sees themselves or the planet, what truth do you hope that they'll hold on to after this experience?
If they believe in themselves in a real healthy way, everyone can have. Like there is no limit on anything. There's no limit on money. There's no limit on joy. There's no limit on peace. And me having some does not prevent you from having some. There is no limit on those things. Unfortunately, we're taught that there's only so much, but there isn't. There is no limit on resources, food, joy. Yeah, we have access to enough, but we limit it. We're limited. Someone is blocking us from what that enough is. And if we just believed in ourselves and loved ourselves enough, we all could have. We could all have, because not all of us need that much. Some might need more than others, but
Right.
just whatever's enough for you, we all could have.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, y'all, we gonna have her back. Okay,
Oh,
because there's just so much more that needs to be discussed and so many more rabbit holes that we can go down and because this was just scratching the surface. Okay, that's what I need y'all to know. All right. But also go ahead and drop into the comments something that you are taking away from this conversation, whatever that might be, so that we can, one, know what's a clip because we want to highlight those things. If it resonated with you, then that will maybe resonate with someone else. But also for you to kind of just solidify your learning. Y'all know I'm a teacher and teachers gonna teach, okay? So that will solidify your learning and kind of give us this collective resource of thinking about the ways that we can show up differently in this world and show up differently with ourselves and really close the loop in connecting ourselves back to this earth and environment that we live in every single day. So can you tell the people before we go where they can find you if they want to connect with you or like what you have going on or like how do people can they find Kerene?
right now on Instagram, I am plans are my love language. And I've just been sharing my travel a lot there. And yeah, I think that's probably the best place to find me. I don't really do much on the TikTok. But yeah, that's where I am. I'm on Instagram, and my website is also plansaremylovelanguage.com. And yeah, that's those two places work.
Very well, y'all. So make sure that you head over to the Instagrams. I don't be on the TikTok like that either. I'm over there, but I don't really be over there like that. So y'all going over to the Instagrams, go to Kareem's website so that you are able to connect with her, see what she's doing. And if you have any questions that maybe didn't get answered, please go ahead and drop those questions as well so that we can increase our knowledge, y'all, so that we can know what this looks like and sounds like for us. So this is Gathered, and we're going to have a whole lot of conversations like this with different people that have different areas of expertise about how they are showing up, what advocacy looks like in their world, and how they are showing up for themselves. So I want to leave us with this thought that we are the earth and the earth is us. So let's keep learning how to live like that matters. And let's do that together. We'll see y'all on the next episode of Gathered. Bye.